take risks. Really, none of us are interested in yes people. We want people who challenge the status quo respectfully, who come forward with ideas. Like, even if 9 out of 10 of them are bad ones, I'd much rather be talking about, bad ideas than, have someone who doesn't add any value.
Welcome back. Today, we're speaking with Ben Rogowski. He is the president and chief investment officer since 2003 for Canderel Management. So he oversees over 700 people. They have tens of millions of square feet of commercial and residential real estate. So a diverse portfolio that they oversee, the Canadian company. And we're going to be diving into how they scaled up from when he first entered of, we'll say, in the low hundreds to over 700 staff in that scaling journey. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, Ben, we're really excited for the conversation here. Running a company of hundreds, we were just saying, like, there's a lot of things that you have to oversee, right? And so, but I'm curious more about your backstory to start the conversation. What did you do prior to your existing role, and maybe your first entrepreneurial, we'll say, experience that you had?
Sure. So prior to joining Canderel, I was working with a small financial company. They lent money to foreign companies who were importing heavy duty machinery from Canada. I was a credit analyst by title, but I think my actual function was like chief photocopying officer, and I did that for about 2.5 years. But it was my way into the Toronto market. I grew up in Vancouver, so I was able to move into their Toronto office with that company. And then that helped me gain access to where I am today. I always knew that I'd end up in a real estate company or working in real estate in some form or fashion. That's what my dad did for many years, and my uncle. So it's kind of in the family and in the blood. Albeit they did it in a much different way. They were small companies, really kind of entrepreneurial. But I grew up, spending weekends on their sites, in their projects, kind of seeing what real estate, working with your hands is all about.
Mm.
But I would say my first entrepreneurial experience dates back to, I don't know, I must have been 11 or 12 or 13, and I was an avid hockey card trader. And some of my friends' older brothers say I was their favorite person to trade with because I would trade away, Wayne Gretzky rookie cards for like empty sheets to put the cards in. So I don't quite think I grasped the business sense of it, but I like that idea of being able to negotiate back then.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you're brought up in real estate, and funny enough, with trading cards, I had this whole stack of trading cards back in the day, and I'm like, somehow it was like placed in my parents' attic when I was growing up, and I'm like, I asked my parents, where are the cards now? Somehow they're not around, but it was more of a, like, back in the day, trading cards that was like a real thing, and it's crazy how it's like turned into a real business. And not that anybody took the cards, but you got to keep your eyes on keep your eyes on these, right? Because it's very easy. It's put out front of, you have like a garage sale or whatever. Next thing you know, they're gone, right? But
Mine still exist. The
yeah.
only unfortunate thing about it is I don't think they're worth anything. Um, I certainly would have been better off putting the money in the bank
Yeah.
and just collecting 3% interest every year.
Yeah,
But
but
what
it's
did
a
I
good
know?
experience growing up, right? And because, I mean, trading's a real thing. You see value, and you trade, and you build
Mhm.
relationships, and have conversations. But what do you think it was growing up in real estate in your family that said? Because you said, I always thought that I would get into real estate. I always knew I was going to get into real estate. What do you think about real estate drew you into the business?
I just love the idea that it's something tangible that you're creating. And I think even today, my favorite part, and my kids will tell you that it makes them wild, is I can drive by a building that we built or that we own, or specifically the ones we built, and tell my kids, I built that. And I can use the word I, knowing, no one does anything by themselves. But the neat thing is that on a big building, there's probably 500 other people that can drive by it and say, I built that. And it'll be there for, hopefully for longer than me. And it just feels like moving something from a vision to something that's tangible and physical is just very satisfying.
Yeah, for me, it started with reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was 17 and I was playing hockey at the time, and I just picked this book up. I'm like, huh. It's like real estate. It's like real estate investing. What a great thing. And as the years went on, I realized like 90% of like millionaires use real estate to be able to get there. And so um, I'm curious for you that, I mean, being an entrepreneur is like, as you're growing up and, we'll say building your skill sets, you entered Canderel back, it was like 22 years ago. And what do you think it was that attracted, like, what skill sets did you have at that point to be attractive enough to have such like a large company bring you on and then to scale and build into the president of the entire company? Like, can you take us through the original skill sets that you had to get in, and then what are the main skill sets that you had to develop in order to become president?
Sure. So when I joined the company, I think it was a lot about right place, right time. I was interested in real estate, and I had started interviewing, but I was interviewing with equity investors looking to get involved on the financial side of things. My kind of comfort is numbers. That's what I studied in university. I'm a very analytical person. I did my CFA shortly after university, so kind of that was my background and my comfort level. And the place for me was on the finance side, but I wasn't gaining any traction. I think in part because I was fairly lost and not a real. I was a driven. Um, I was driven when I was younger, but um, not necessarily in a clear direction, if that makes any
Mm,
sense.
yeah, for sure.
So I probably wasn't telling a really good story when I was going in for interviews. My best friend at the time was working at Canderel. He decided to go to business school, and our office at the time was maybe 18 or 20 people in Toronto. And the guy running the office said to him, if you're leaving, then you need to replace yourself. So he called me like a week before he was leaving, and he said, I am not going to be leaving on good terms if I don't put some people in front of him for interviews. So just do me a favor and come in and interview. I know it's not what you want, but it'll help me tick a box. And I think the rest was history. I don't want to speak for the owner's behalf, but I think what he liked about me was how eager I was, how kind of green I was, and how he felt comfortable that he'd be able to teach me. Um, and he must have thought sooner rather than later I could bring something to the table. And I would say the primary reason why I was able to continue to grow within the organization is that we kind of don't have boxes to tick in terms of when and how people mature. And it's based on merits, and we don't really care about your education and your experience. But if you're eager and you have good ideas and you're not afraid to respectfully voice those ideas, then you can move up quite quickly here.
I think that's such a big part, being teachable and coachable. It's interesting, like we've hired through the years like quite a few like PhDs and MBAs, and one of the things that I found, not with all of them, but with some, was the fact that the cup was already full and you
Mhm.
couldn't pour in anymore. And that's what the owners would have seen in you, is like that he's coachable, like he's actually going to listen. Uh, how important do you think that was to your development to have this kind of cup half full mindset?
Um, I I think it was important. I mean, I remember like the dating process felt quite prolonged before they decided to hire me, which was a bit frustrating at the time because it's not like I was an expensive piece to the puzzle. I was coming in as a junior analyst. Um, And he was quite transparent with me, the owner, who was based in Montreal, and he said, "Look, I'm deciding between you and someone more senior." Um, and I said, "Look, with someone more senior, you're gonna get someone who has more knowledge, but who's probably stuck in their ways to a certain extent. I'm gonna learn quickly. You'll be able to mold me the way you want to mold me." And I still joke that 22 years later, like, the minute he's not happy, just tell me and I'll move on. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
kind of maybe not every day, maybe that's an exaggeration, but I feel like every week is an audition to a certain extent, and I really haven't taken anything I do and anything I have access to for granted. And I just want to continue to improve, and I want our company to continue to improve.
That's so good. Yeah, because complacency is a real thing, right? You get this idea of like I already know it all versus like on a weekly basis, like you had mentioned there about auditioning. I would imagine that would year over year that would compound into massive growth. I would imagine.
Yeah, and having like I'm married to a wonderful woman, and I have 2 teenage daughters. So if there's one thing I get reminded on a daily basis, it's that I basically know nothing. So as long I just take that attitude with me.
Yeah, that's so good. I know Joanna lets me know when I'm off as well. My wife, and I have 3 boys, teenagers as well. So they're now I they teach me certain things. Like, hey, what about that? It was a word there that my 17-year-old. I'm like, what's that word? He's like, oh, etiquette. It's like, okay, I was explaining something about standing up when you go and shake somebody's hand, right? It's like it's etiquette when that. Anyways, I was talking to my youngest there, but okay. So what else? So starting from ground level, say, and then scaling up into what other suggestions would you have for the listeners that are maybe they're starting in a business and they want to grow and scale within the business? What advice would you have for them in order to grow in addition to the things that we've been talking about?
Yeah, I think, ask a lot of questions. I always tell our people, we have meetings all the time, and don't rely on me or on other leaders to get that invite list right. Chances are we're going to forget people. It's not on purpose. So if you get wind of something, either a meeting or some work stream that sounds interesting, and you think you can add value or you think you're interested by it, then barge your way in. If we don't want you in the room, we'll tell you, and you shouldn't have any hard feelings. But more often than not, it's not coming from a bad place that you weren't invited. And so I think that's some advice I'd give to young future leaders. And the other thing is take risks. Like, really, none of us are interested in yes people in our organizations. We want people who challenge the status quo respectfully, who come forward with ideas. Like, even if 9 out of 10 of them are bad ones, I'd much rather be talking about bad ideas than have someone who sits like a lump on a log and doesn't add any value to the conversation.
Yeah, that's really good. It takes courage, right, to do that because
Yeah,
you
but
might be
but
off.
you know, like we try and have our leaders lead by example. Like, some of the perhaps dumbest ideas are ones we're putting forward, and hopefully that makes the group around us feel comfortable to bring forward whatever's on their mind.
How do you develop trust within the organization so that people feel like they're not going to get their head ripped off if they say something that maybe doesn't make sense or maybe an idea falls short? There's a great deal of trust building for people to feel comfortable. How do you do it within your organization?
I think it's a tough balance. My view is that I think every human being, or most human beings, I should say, come at things with good intent. So if they've gotten something wrong or they've done something stupid, it's likely not coming from a bad place. So I think if you give people the benefit of the doubt, now if they're doing it repeatedly, that's a different story. But at least off the hop, you give people the benefit of the doubt, and you give them a leash. Now, the leash should be long. But the conditions of the autonomy they have, I think, need to be properly defined. And if you don't have that definition, then it becomes kind of too open ended for the average person to wrap their head around it. But if you've got some basic definition and you have a high level of trust, then most people rise to the occasion.
Right on. I believe that companies grow or fall based on the decisions that are made on a regular basis. So, for you and your company, are there any, we'll call them principles or decision filters that you have on making decisions within your organization so that you guys make great decisions?
I think the most important is, we want people to operate within the company the way we hope they operate at home. So, it goes from like as simple as, you know, do you just dump your dishes in the sink at home, or do you put them in the dishwasher? Hopefully, it's the latter. To would you accept, would you go out and sole source a big job in your house, or would you get multiple quotes? If you are getting multiple quotes, are you negotiating? Like, don't take the view that it's someone else's money. Operate as though it's your own place.
Mm, yeah, that ownership that's so good. And that's one of the things I've noticed with really strong leaders is they're able to break things down to the simple so that everybody understands. I think sometimes we get caught up with, oh, the leader's got to, be way smarter than everyone else. But I found that the smartest leaders they have the ability to break things down to the simple, like you just did. It's like, what would you do at your own home, right? If you're the owner of the house, like, what would you do? I would negotiate and I would get multiple quotes, right? That seems simple, but the ability to break things down to simple, I think, is really good. I love that.
And the other thing I would say is that for like I suffered from this early in my career, probably for the first half of my career, where you kind of have your elbows up, you're worried about role security, you're worried about your own growth. Um, I think it shows a lot more, like, that was immature of me, and it shows a lot more strength and confidence, to bring people in, early on. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength, I believe. And we should hire people around us who are smarter than us. And, the minute kind of I understood that and I wrapped my head around it and we started acting that way, I found it really helped the organization in terms of the horsepower we had.
How do you attract these A players? Is there a certain kind of approach that you do, or what do you think A players are attracted to that they would want to come work for the organization?
I think it's a few things. The projects we've completed in the past are a bit of a calling card. We're not a producer of widgets or of commodity type product. We're not an owner of or a long term owner of average product where we just clip a coupon if it's income producing. We're looking, to do something unique on every investment. Um, Now, there's different. You can move at various levels up the scale of unique. They're not always once in a lifetime projects, but they have to be something a little bit different, and we don't mind. Or we actually want to roll our sleeves up, so we don't mind if it's got some hair on it and others can't figure it out. We kind of look at that as a challenge to disturbing the status quo. So I think people like that. They're inspired by some of the stuff we've done. I think the culture of the organization goes a long way, and we've got a good reputation we built with
Mm.
respect to that within the Canadian market, where people know us and know what we're about. Um, we really pride ourselves on being able to cross the same bridge multiple times. I can't think of a single partnership that we've had that ended in a bad way. In our 50-year history, um, I can't think of a time where we've been in court. There least not during my tenure. I can think of one time before that where we were kind of dragged in as a third party, but we settle things, and I believe we're good to work with, and the partners that we've had the luxury of doing multiple transactions with are good people as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I think when you put all that together, we're in a nice situation that we don't take for granted. We continue to work on it every day.
That's really solid. I love that about like the partnership side. I'm curious when you're making selection on who to partner with, because I mean, for a lot of the listeners, maybe they've had a partnership that just blew up and it was like the most horrible thing. I've spoken with some operators who are like, I'll never partner with anybody again. You've obviously had some success in that field. What are some main things that you look for when you're making your partnership selection?
I mean, it depends on the asset class, but we want to partner with groups who have experience in whatever asset class and whatever type of project we're talking about. Um, because regardless of what you plan for, things go wrong on every investment, and so being able to sit down with a partner who's got experience and who's solution oriented, goes a long way. And obviously, strong reputation and trustworthy. And I think if you put all those things together, then you've got good ingredients. We're also really not interested in silent partners. Like even if it's capital and they don't have a defined role per se in executing on a project, we want them to want to have a seat at the table. They are going to have good ideas from time to time, and I never want a partner to say, "Why did you do that? I wish I would have known," or "Why did you do it that way?" Um, I really want them to have an opportunity to speak their mind.
Yeah, that says so much. I think coming into a partnership, being open to listening to the other party, I think to me, it just sets the table for so much more fruit that can come from it. I really like that. How it's not just equity that they're bringing to the table; they're bringing other skill sets and a say at the table as well. I think that's it takes humility to be able to do that, and like an openness, like, hey, I don't know everything, and we're open to hearing what you have to say. I love that. What about on a daily basis, Ben? You've been super successful. What are some habits that you do on a regular, maybe daily or weekly basis that has, we'll say, compounded for you over time into big results?
I think making quick decisions, and there's a balance between making informed decisions, and obviously, not spending too much time to maybe get 100% comfortable, but you can get 90 some odd percent of the way there in 5% of the time. And I think, a bad decision that was made quickly is very often then a good decision that never gets made or is made too slow. So I try and kind of run my life with a real sense of urgency, and I try and convey that to all the people around me, um, that time kills deals. Time, your gut reaction, your instant gut reaction is very often the correct one and the best one. Um, and it takes time for people to get to that stage. But I would say that's kind of the most important thing for me.
Yeah. And I would imagine too, I mean, getting up over 700 people, that people need to feel autonomy to be able to make decisions near the front lines so that it doesn't, by the time it gets to you, the president at the top, is like it takes time to move through the company that way. So giving that autonomy for them to be able to make fast decisions along the way, filtering through the right, filtering mechanism that they're making good decisions as well, I would imagine would allow you to move a lot faster. Is that what you
Yeah,
found?
absolutely, absolutely, and
Yeah.
and we've got, those 700 people are probably comprised of, say, 4 different divisions per se, and we've got great leaders for each of those groups, and And we operate at the exec level almost like a board to each of those divisions, and they really have freedom to run their business, and it creates a kind of a good feel and an entrepreneurial feel to what we do.
Do you guys have a meeting cadence that you follow? Are they like, are there daily huddles, weekly meetings? Like, is there a cadence that you run, or is each division kind of run the way that they see fit on from a communication cadence, meeting cadence standpoint?
Yeah, no, I would say it's both.
Yeah.
We definitely have a cadence we follow as it relates to the executive committee that oversees all of this. We don't have a board per se, and so at the exec committee and together with the ownership, we meet on a regular basis. Um, we at the same time, it's a very flat organization. Um, we none of us have executive assistants. Everyone knows our cell number, and it's been like that kind of since before COVID, when when people kept cell numbers private. Um, we encourage people to not be shy. They don't have to go through their boss to get to their boss. To get to one of us. There's a lot of direct communication. Um, and even our Toronto office and some of our other offices are completely open concept. I don't have any walls around my area, so anyone can poke their head up and just shout at me at any point in time, and we'll engage. So
Mm,
it's I think kind of creating the ingredients for an open and collaborative environment, is the first part, and then actually following through on it.
yeah, that's really good. I found when I go to the front lines and I just start talking to them, it's interesting what you find a nugget here and there's like, why are we doing
Sure,
it
yeah.
that way? Right. You start finding those, and um it's powerful, right? And then you start digging in, they're like, well, because this is how we've done it in the past. It's like, well, do we need to keep doing it that way? Or even asking a question back to them, it's like, what's like bugging you right now? Like, what's one thing that you find is just like a pain in your type thing? And it's like interesting what they're like, well, this is like, okay, well, our last quarterly meeting, we talked about, and we wrote down, okay, what are some things we're actually going to be cutting this quarter? Silly processes, silly things that, like, let's figure out what we're going to cut, because normally you just keep putting more chicken in the fridge, right? But there's the fridge is full. But going to the front lines are one of the best, and then clients as well. I found that really powerful. You're getting the direct goods from them. Okay, so how about when it comes to stress? As a business leader, you have immense, we'll say, there's a lot of pressure on you as a leader, right? There, you have high standards. I can tell that. Like, I figured that out pretty quick when we when we met. It's like you have high standards. There's pressure there. How do you? What are some things that like stress you out, and then how do you deal with pressure and stress to help mitigate, to keep you healthy long term and in the game long term?
Yeah, so it's difficult, especially in this environment. Canadian real estate, for the most part, is not a really fun place to be right now. So, stress levels increase. Um, I I try not to get stressed. Like, on the one hand, I try not to get stressed about things I can't control, but those are often the biggest stressors because you can't control them, and at the same time, I try not to get stressed about things I can control because I can presumably fix it, with some effort and in short order. Right now it's a combination. Obviously, there's a lot of external factors that are leading to a difficult real estate environment. Um, but that presents opportunity as well. So,
Mm,
as stressed as I am over our existing projects, that leads to, kind of on the flip side of things, a high level of excitement over opportunities for growth and new acquisitions. Um, and how do I manage it? I joke that I work in between fishing trips, and I love fishing. It relaxes me. I only get to do it a day here and a day there, so maybe it's maybe it's 10 days a year in total, but it feels like that kind of resets me for a number of months, and anytime I can get on a trip.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great to find something like that. I know for me, it's like, I found doing like hot cold plunges. I found going back and forth. That's actually been one of the things that if you get a chance, you go to, I don't know if you've been to Spa Scandinave north of you or Veta Spa and Horseshoe doing the hot cold relax. You do like a half day of that. And I found like just stress level just totally, dissipates, even more so sometimes than taking a whole week off. So, um, that's cool. So you get out and fishing. I don't know. Do you do any pickerel fishing? I found the pickerel is
No.
like to me is like the ultimate, doing the fish fries, taking them in, and I've done a couple of those with my buddies. We'll go up like up to Thunder Bay, and you drop the lines. It is a cool thing to be able to figure out what that stress relief is for you.
Yeah, no, I haven't done any kind of meaningful Ontario fishing. Growing up on the West Coast, spent a lot of time salmon and halibut fishing off the coast of BC, and I'm into some of the bigger fish now. But my buddy here actually just about an hour ago was showing me a good size walleye that he caught off the dock with his kid yesterday. So it sounds like maybe that should be in one of the next trips.
Yeah, well, it's good to know too. I mean, for the entrepreneurs listening, it's like, you know, you work a lot, but it's good to kind of unplug a little bit. And for me, I always talked about whenever I would go out and play hockey or just go play some pickup hockey, it was like everything dissipated, and you get to kind of just unplug for a bit and give a little. And it's interesting because good ideas come up. I found when I unplug, right? Uh, Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. The changing gears a little bit on making wise investment decisions. So we have the real estate brokerage, and then we have the real estate investment firm. We buy these multifamily value add deals down in the U.S. And now it used to be 1 in 100 we could find these deals, and now it's like 1 in 300. So we have a whole kind of process with making the selection of what is within our buy box, and then actually filtering and then making the decision, this is an opportunity we want to go after. You would have your own process to be able to find these deals. You said earlier about something that's unique, something that you can add value to is really good. Are there any other things that when you look at an investment opportunity that you're like, okay, this is something we get really excited for?
Yeah, I think if it's a multifaceted opportunity, then we can we can show our prowess when it comes to that, given we've got experience in residential, both rental and for sale condominium. We've got experience in retail, in office. Industrial is probably the one asset class that our experience isn't as far along as the others. But we manage a fair amount of industrial for third parties from a property management perspective, and we have owned it and developed it in the past. Um, so when it's kind of a large mixed use project with different components, um, I think that's how we can separate ourselves. Um, and like you said, it's looking at a lot of opportunities to find one. It's making sure there's kind of clearly defined understanding. Number one within our team is to kind of what the right ingredients are for a successful acquisition, and then conveying that out to the market so that they understand it. Um, I would say one of the unique things about us is notwithstanding kind of the handful of investment themes that we have, we're always interested in looking at something completely outside of the box, and those have been some of um, the most satisfying projects that we've done in the past, where it wouldn't fit a current investment theme, and other groups may have dismissed it, but we sunk our teeth into it, and we helped solve the problem.
Yeah, love that. And is there which asset class right now of all real estate asset classes are you most excited about today?
Oh, good question. I mean, excited, for different reasons. I mean, I think excited for the obvious reason would be Office. We're seeing, um, some strong momentum on the Office side. Um, I'm talking about acquiring income producing. Development isn't quite there yet. Um, so I'm probably most excited about the ingredients as it relates to that asset class. Um, I spent more of my career on residential development, high rise, than anything else. Um, so part of what excites me there is kind of a few years into a difficult cycle. I have to believe we're closer to the end of it than the beginning. We're seeing some acquisition opportunities for really good development sites at significantly lower values than they would have traded at a few years ago. So I'm getting excited about that. Not quite there yet, but getting there.
Well, real estate, I mean, it goes in cycles, and I think that's for everyone to know when you're in a down cycle, there will be an up cycle, and it's good when you get to the up cycle to realize like this is going to go the other way too. So start to prepare yourself. But that's where when you're in the business, as long as you start to have some competitive advantage, right? Because it's like we've seen this before, guys. Come on, like let's keep moving here.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Canadian market was on such a tear
Yeah.
for 20 years. My only experience with down markets comes from, remembering what my dad was telling me when I was a kid, and he was living through them. So I feel like what we're going through right now will arm, you know, our entire generation for the next cycle. My only regret is when things were really good. I wish we would have done a lot more, and I wish we would have appreciated how good it was.
Yeah, I think that's like a pretty standard wish for most people is like I wish I would have done a little bit more at the time. But you're in the game, which is good. So it's a lot of people, even now they still don't even own any real estate, which I think is I think moving forward, it's interesting. I think that real estate ownership, even if it's owning your own house, will be the biggest divide in wealth between the wealthy and the
Yeah,
unwealthy, I think. Right. So, all right. So I have three final questions, rapid fire, and then we're going to wrap it up. You ready?
yeah, go for it.
All right. So first question is: I'm a big reader, love reading books. Which book has made the biggest impact in your career?
I would say two. One is called "The Speed of Trust" by Covey. Um, that was maybe still is the owner of our company's favorite book. So he passed that on to a handful of us many years ago. I read it again recently for the second time, and I can see kind of reading it every handful of years really resonated with me. And the other one is a book called Badass Habits by Jen Sincero, and I may not be pronouncing her last name right. And I just loved it. I read it maybe 3 years ago, and just it was about kind of forming good habits, and her style is kind of no holds barred. She really got to the point. I really found myself like not wanting to put it down. So those two, I'd say.
Love that. Was there a habit that she recommended that would stands out to you? Is there maybe one or two from the book that you're like, okay, this would be a good one to maybe start?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me because you know what, I'm going to get it wrong. There were a whole bunch I can think of, but I've read a lot of books on kind of habits and
Yeah,
habits of leaders. So I'm probably not going to attribute the right ones to her, but I just remember at the time so many of them resonated with me.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm probably due for a reread.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think the key that's really important is Darren Hardy wrote about this in the compound effect. It's like anything you do consistently over a sustained period of time, you get we'll say exponential returns because you don't see it's like bamboo. It does you can see so bamboo takes like 3 years to root and it's growing down below, but you can't see it growing up above. And then all of a sudden when it starts growing, it can grow like 2, 3 feet a day, right? So I think that's with habits is the same thing, right? You implement something, and over time you don't see it immediately. But real estate's kind of that way, right?
Yeah,
You don't
yeah.
see it for the first few years, and very cool. I'll pick that book up. Thanks for sharing. Speed of Trust. I actually saw Covey talk back many years ago, and that's a solid book as well. Love that. Okay, second question here. People that know you best, Ben, what are three words that they would use to best describe you?
I think, honest and trustworthy, those kinda go hand in hand. What you see is what you get with me. Uh, Hardworking, if you can put that all together in one word, um, and probably driven.
Good. Okay, and then final question here. What advice would you give to the entrepreneurs that are listening? Final advice that you give them to maybe help scale and grow their business?
Uh, Take chances. If you don't stray outside the lines, and aren't afraid of failure, which I was afraid of for a long time, then I think you're missing out on opportunities. And life is long, so like failure when you're young is probably a good thing. Um, and the way you'll bounce back from it and learn from it, and the way it'll set you up for growth going forward, is really meaningful. So I think take chances, and obviously not stupid blind ones, but don't be afraid to try something different.
Love that. We have one life to live, right? So good. All right. So, how can the listeners maybe learn a little bit more about the business that you're in? Canderel, is there a spot that they can maybe connect and learn a little bit more about your company?
Yeah, so our website, canderel.com, has a lot of good information. We're active on LinkedIn, somewhat active on Instagram with some of our platforms. Um, and my cell phone is easily found, and many others, and there's no substitute for personal connections. So please don't be shy. If you see one of us at a conference, come up and say hi. If you have a question, if there's anything we can help you with your real estate in Canada, we'd love to help.
It's amazing. Ben, thank you so much for coming on the show. Such a wealth of wisdom. Congrats on your success, and to many, many more years of success to you. Again, appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Right on. Well, thank you everyone for coming and listening to the show. If you liked it, you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And just remember that the fastest way to build your wealth is to grow your business and invest in real estate. I love you guys.